This is Obsidian ASMR. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Hello, and welcome back to another Obsidian ASMR video. And today we are finally at the Majin Buu Saga. We're almost at the end of the line with Dragon Ball Z. And in true Dragon Ball fashion, I'll give you a quick rundown on what happened last time with Season 7. The story begins after the Cell Saga, where Cell has been defeated. Time skip forward about 7 years and go on. He is about to attend college or high school, along with Videl, who is the daughter of Mr. Satan, Hercule. Gohan has taken up the mantle of the great Saiyan Man to try to combat crime without revealing his identity. But Videl is hot on his case, trying to unmask him. Exciting stuff. Eventually, she figures it out, and they start training for the World Martial Arts Tournament that was announced by Hercule to prove he is still the best martial artist in the world. Although we know he isn't. There was another surprise, which was Goku, fresh from the other world tournament, where he faced off against the greatest fighters that the various Kais, north, south, east, and I believe west, had for him. And after defeating Pycon in the finals, had been granted the opportunity to train with the Grand Kai. But he revealed to Gohan that he was actually due to come back to Earth for 1 day only, and that was for the World Martial Arts Tournament. Can't keep a good boy away. So the tournament began with the juniors section or class, and it was between Trunks and Goten in the final, and Trunks played on Goten's naivete to win. He got a match against Mr. Satan, which was viewed as a damp rubber by many, but I believe Trunks had to rein it in because he was going to win. Then came the adult classifications, and the likes of Android 18, Vegeta, Krillin, Piccolo, and others enter. Piccolo comes up against the mysterious Shin, and immediately, to the surprise of many, withdraws himself from the match. also see Videl versus a incredibly menacing and muscular gentleman by the name of Spopovich. 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 And he uses her like a punching bag, and is quite overly brutal with Videl to the point where it's difficult to watch. The match ends, and then Gohan is due to face Shin's ward or bodyguard, Kibito. 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 And Kibito is trying to force Gohan to go Super Saiyan, and he succeeds. And just when we thought Gohan was about to win, Spopovich and his ally jump in the ring and start to assault Gohan and try to drain his energy. Why? We don't know, but today we will find out. So now that you're all up to date with where we're at in the story, it's time to look into Season 8. More specifically, the Babidi and the Majin Buu Sagas. So as always, I'll read the back. The forces of good and evil have converged upon the planet Earth, and the fate of the universe hangs in the balance. The evil wizard, Babidi, has travelled across the galaxy on a quest for revenge, hoping to fulfill his father's thwarted dreams of universal domination. Meanwhile, the Supreme Kai has come to enlist the aid of the Z-Fighters in an effort to prevent Babidi from completing his plans and awakening a monster of unimaginable terror, Majin Buu. As Goku and the Z-Fighters descend into Babidi's lair, they're confronted by an army of powerful minions led by the Demon King, Dabura himself. Can our heroes resist the wizard's dark magic and battle their way through this host of villains before time runs out? With each passing second, more energy is gathered for the sleeping Majin Buu. And should this creature of pure evil be awakened, all life everywhere will be extinguished. Exciting stuff. So, on the back here, you got Majin Buu, you got Dabura, and you got Babidi, as well as some other characters like Gotenks and Goku. Now, just as a side to this, there's a lot of rumours going around about the new or recently announced series Dragon Ball Daima, and in the trailer you have seen it, you can see two figures reviewing the events of the Babidi and Majin Buu sagas. And there's a lot of speculation that Deborah and the Demon Realm will feature quite heavily in that story. I also know there's quite a lot of controversy surrounding it at the minute, and that's okay. But I'd be quite interested to see us go to the so far unexplored Demon Realm. Having done these videos now for a month or two, it's made me want to replay Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which I have. And the villains in that game are demons from the Demon Realm. So it seems, through a lot of the media, supplemental media, that they are gearing up towards the Demon Realm. And I'd quite like to see what they've got to offer, especially as it is being heavily managed by Akira Toriyama himself. Now with that out of the way, let's open this up and have a little look. Okay, so our hero profiles are Gohan, Elder Kai, who is also in Xenoverse 2, or Xenoverse 2, Android 18, Mighty Mask, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who, I have to admit, this is probably my least favourite version of Super Saiyan, and it's quite interesting that when I was little and the internet was in its infancy, you could go on and you could Google Super Saiyan 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever, and basically the fan art that masqueraded as official would always give the Saiyans more and more and more hair, and I often thought that that was a reference to the Bible with Samson, whose strength was determined by his hair, and after he lost his hair, so too he lost his strength. I don't know. It might also be, bearing in mind the Saiyans are all named after vegetables, and root vegetables, and that it could be to do with their roots, and the more roots, the more mature the fruit or vegetable, and stronger or more nutritious the vegetable will become. But this is serious act of rebellion in the culture. So dyeing hair blonde and growing it out, whoa, I imagine that was super duper rebellious. Maybe. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments below. Then we got Gotenks, and we'll come to who that is and how that is in a little bit. Always used to be quite cool as a kid. Then you got the evil wizard, Babidi, and I think you probably picked up that Akira Toriyama has some quite strange naming conventions, and his villains tend to be influenced by other pieces of media. So, what's the reference here? I believe it was Cinderella, and the famous Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo song. I think that's Cinderella. But yeah, his father is called Bibbidi, he's called Bobbidi, and the creation is Boo. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. Yeah, I mean, this guy was just a bit strange. And then, by the looks of things, we've got Majin Buu. And I'll read this one, because he's a big character. Buu, or Majin Buu, was conjured into existence long ago by the evil wizard Babidi, a monstrous creature with a pink, rubbery body. Buu was intended to be the incarnation of pure evil. In the service of Babidi, he is single-handedly responsible for the destruction of countless worlds. After centuries of lying dormant, Buu has been released by Babidi's son, Babidi, to destroy the earth. With his childlike personality, Buu does not have a strongly developed sense of good and evil. He performs his numerous acts of destruction simply because he finds them fun. As he begins to form an unlikely friendship with Mr. Satan, however, he begins to realize the consequences of his actions. He even agrees to stop hurting people when he discovers that it upsets Mr. Satan or Hercule. Unfortunately, Boo's seeming change of heart may have come too late. So, let's get into it. Episode 220. Having had his energy stolen by Yuma and Spopovich at the World Martial Arts Tournament, the Sea Fighters race to catch them, and it leads them to Babidi's hidden spaceship, where they are due to deposit by spitting on them. And he does so with Piccolo and Krillin. Meanwhile, I believe they also dispatch their former comrades of Spopovich and Yuma, I think that's his name, before inviting the Sea Fighters and Supreme Kai, who we formerly knew as Shin, into Babidi's spaceship. But why? What are they after? Good question, dear viewer. Well, Babidi and their spaceship have multiple levels leading down to where they're at the bottom. But in order for the Sea Fighters to get down to stop Babidi, they would need to defeat his henchmen, including Bui Bui and Yakon, or Bui Bui. Vegeta steps up first and defeats Bui Bui with ease, really making short work of the alien. But the catch is, with each of these fights, the energy that is expended during the fight is captured and used to awaken Majin Buu. So the next matchup is between Goku and Yakon. I remember this guy because he had the ability to steal and eat key blasts like their food. He was made out to be one of the most fearsome creatures in the universe, but effectively Goku defeats him by gorging him on more ki than he can muster. Meanwhile, away from the events of Babidi's spaceship, back at the World Martial Arts Tournament, Android 18 and Mighty Mask, or Goten and Trunks in disguise, face off against one another in an effort to reach the final and face Mr. Satan and win a massive cash prize. And this continues into episode 225. Oh, sorry, it's the final. It's the final match, yeah, and it's a battle royale with 5 people in there, including Mr. Satan. So, 18 and Mighty Mask start flying, but she can't seem to stop Mighty Mask until she cuts him in half and realizes it's Goten and Trunks. They get disqualified or knocked out the ring along with the other fighters, leaving just Android 18 and Mr. Satan or Hercule. She makes him an offer to preserve his pride and reputation, whereby, as long as he were to double the prize money, she would throw the fight. Android 18 is all about the money. And he agrees. And I think in one of the best bits of selling, to use a wrestling term, Mr. Satan throws one punch, and Android 18 throws herself out of the ring to give him the victory. Meanwhile, at stage 3, at Babidi's ship, it is the Demon King Deborah himself to face off against one of the Z fighters. And it turns out to be Gohan, who's now got rid of pretty much all of his Great Saiyaman costume trimmings, other than the spandex, dare I say, underneath, and the gloves and the boots, so he looks a lot like Vegeta, which is interesting from a visual standpoint. Deborah stops the fight, and there's a good reason for it. He concedes and reveals they've made a great discovery. Well, it turns out Babidi can use his powers to unlock even the most dormant of evil in a person. And he does so with Vegeta, who has all of that character development and softening that we've seen since the Frieza arc stripped away, and his power amplified, and he becomes Majin Vegeta, effectively tapping into Vegeta's desire to beat Kakarot in a fight and prove he is the greatest of all Saiyans. Babidi gave him the tools to do so, and Goku instinctively doesn't want to fight him because of the implications for Majin Buu and his awakening. But Vegeta will stop at nothing to get his prize, including destroying one of the stands at the World Martial Arts Tournament and all the people on it, which is an act that Saiyan Saga Vegeta would do, but to do it in front of his son and his wife really hit home, at least to the viewer, or me. He was giving in to his pride and narcissism, but with threats against innocent people on the line, Goku concedes and they start to fight. It's very even, and they match each other blow for blow. All the while, and honestly, if you haven't, I would go and watch that fight. The choreography is fantastic. The artwork is phenomenal. And yeah, it's one of my favourites. But to remind you, every blow in that fight helps awaken Majin Buu much, Supreme Kai finally reach the bottom of Babidi's spaceship and begin to confront him. But just before they can, and they can stop the madness, the energy being pumped out by Goku and Vegeta becomes enough to hatch Majin Buu. Now this is one of Akira Toriyama's great subversions, having given us the cold Frieza and the calculating Cell. You'd expect something as sinister and unnerving, and what we got was a childlike entity who, their visage, not to fat shame or anything, but visually, when you look at him, he is not imposing, and in fact, he's quite weirdly cute, and disarmingly cute. Let's go for that. Interestingly, it's not the Majin Buu that Babidi remembers. With his big, and it says it here to be fair, with his big, pink belly and infantile behaviour, Buu doesn't fit the bill of a galaxy destroyer. That is, until Deborah taunts him and is hurled into a distant cliff with a single blow. I always found it quite interesting at this point, because everybody was like, that's Majin Buu. That. But even Babidi was like, that's him. That's not him. But the Supreme Kai just had this constant look of terror, absolute terror, on his face. And we'll find out why later. So yeah, the terror of Mr. Buu. Gohan gets knocked out. The Supreme Kai tries to fight Buu. Yeah, to fight Buu and keep him at bay, or lose his life. And Goten and Trunks land on the rocky cliffs to watch what's going on, but accidentally stumble into Piccolo, still frozen in stone, and shatter him into pieces, along with Krillin. Deborah at this point returns, and I believe Buu turns him into a massive cookie and eats him. So it looks at this point as if Piccolo and Krillin are lost for good. In episode 235, Vegeta has snapped free of Babidi's control, and as always, decides that he's strong enough to vanquish the foe. And he unleashes or launches a, as it says there, ballistic barrage of attacks at Majin Buu. doesn't look like it's going well. And this is one of my favourite moments of the entire series. Because in episode 237, Vegeta, the narcissist, the man with an incredible sense of pride and ego, whose self-centered devotion to being the best ever finally comes full circle, even after the depth and the horrors that he just inflicted, to get a chance to prove he is the best. In an act of ultimate sacrifice, Vegeta turns to Goten and Trunks, knocking Goten out, and then says, stoically, "Take care of your mother," as he hugs Trunks and knocks him out too. Piccolo at this point has been revived from the stone, and he comes over aware of what's about to happen, and they exchange a look before Piccolo picks up Trunks and Goten to flee the scene. In his head, in his own thoughts, Vegeta says, "I do this for you, Trunks, Bulma, and even you, Kakarot," before self-exploding, sacrificing himself in an attempt to wipe Majin Buu off the face of the planet. And it looked like it had worked. But the scattered remains of Majin Buu's flesh start to regroup, and the monster, quite like Cell, begins to regenerate into his original form. Babidi has been left at this point, cut in half, I believe, by Piccolo. But Gohan is still missing. In episode 239, Bulma, trying to atone for her husband's deadly rampage at the World Martial Arts Tournament, has been trying to locate all 7 Dragon Balls to wish his victims back to life. Goku awakens to have his wounds tended to by Dende, who also informs him that Vegeta has sacrificed himself in vain to try to stop Majin Buu. It is in episode 240 that Goku reveals the art of fusion, the fusion dance. I believe it was the Memorans that taught him how to do it, and he and Piccolo try to teach Goten and Trunks the fusion dance, which has to be executed precisely, and it also has to be conducted by 2 individuals with very similar, if not identical, power levels. Bulma summons the Eternal Dragon set his sights on Piccolo, Goten and Trunks to exact vengeance for the damage Piccolo caused to Babidi. And he did this by plastering images of them in everyone's mind and threatening to terrorize the planet if they're not handed over. Meanwhile, Supreme Kai and Kibito are found Gohan alive and transport him to the Supreme Kai's world, safe for now from Majin Buu. Episode 242 is all about Goten and Trunks actually perfecting the art of fusion. And in this, there are a couple of instances where things don't go to plan, and Gotenks is either incredibly skinny or, becomes quite fat before they finally get it right. All the while, Majin Buu terrorizes innocents to force the Z-Fighters out of hiding. Gohan gets healed on the Supreme Kai's world and attempts successfully to remove the Z-Sword. Episode 243 is where Buu starts turning entire towns into chocolate. And Gohan, as I say, starts training with the Z-Sword. Babidi learns where Trunks lives through a family friend and makes a beeline towards Capsule Corp. And this is where Super Saiyan 3 is revealed. Fun fact, when recording the audio for the Super Saiyan 3 transformation, Sean Shamel, the voice of Goku in the Funimation dub, actually passed out in the recording booth because it was just that intense. And I think he said in interviews afterwards that he always tries to top it with transformations, but that was the point where he decided maybe that wasn't such a good idea. He's probably right, bearing in mind how many further transformations have occurred since. So in episode 246, Goku is buying Trunks the time he needs to locate the missing Dragon Radar. But Buu, getting more and more annoyed and frustrated with Babidi's increasing demands, finally has had enough and kills his supposed master, freeing himself to do whatever he wants. And what is that? Well, it's wiping out entire cities in seconds. Still, throughout all of this, Goten and Trunks can't quite master the art of the fusion technique. All whilst Majin Buu gets closer and closer. But he does take a minute to stop destroying cities to build his own home. Completely out of character. This is also the time where Goku has to say goodbye because his time in the real world has expired and he has to go back to the afterlife or the other world. So 249, Trunks and Goten still haven't mastered the technique. But we start to see a softer side to Majin Buu with his interactions with the blind boy. Episode 250, Gohan accidentally breaks the Z-Sword, liberating or freeing Elder Kai from within. He reveals that he had previously been a Kai on the planet until he got tricked by a witch, but I won't go into too much with that right now, because that's for the last installment of the series. And then finally, Gotenks is born in episode 251. It's interesting that at the same time, the movie studios were making the film Fusion Reborn, and they often did this, where they would premiere an idea like Fusion in the movies before introducing it into the series. So I think I'm right in saying that they actually premiered Gogeta in Fusion Reborn before Gotenks and another fused character later on. But yeah, so Trunks and Goten finally become Gotenks, who's hot-headed and full of himself and basically doesn't listen to anybody else like a teenager, and goes to fight Majin Buu. This is around the time that Majin Buu gets confronted by the world's saviour, Mr. Satan, who tries his Megaton Punch, and then starts some other tricks to try to get Majin Buu on side and maintain his reputation. Finally, in episode 253, Mr. Satan continues to try to think of ways to beat Majin Buu, but they befriend a puppy together and effectively start to have this weird household vibe about them. And it turns out Majin Buu has a lot of love for that dog and is convinced by Mr. Satan to kill no more. so much for tuning in and spending this time with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're relaxed. Maybe got some tingles. And if you did, and this is your first time here, drop a comment below. I love to hear from you, and I always try to respond. And if you did like it, drop it a like, and maybe consider watching some other videos or subscribing. We're very much on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and it would be an honour if you join me along that road. This channel isn't mine, it's ours, and it's been phenomenal to be the custodian of it to this point, and to see the growth of it. And I see all your really kind words of encouragement, and I just want you to know that they mean a lot to me, and that this channel is nothing without you, all of you. So from me to you, thank you. And with that being said, all I've got left to say is, please take care of yourselves.